And welcome, folks, to another edition of Definitive Cinema. I am so excited you're joining us this week. I'm Chris Peterson, one of your hosts, and we are talking about one of my favorite locales, I guess you could say, of film. We're talking about Sin City, the great city out west. We're talking about Las Vegas movies. Joining me on this wonderful YouTube edition, by the way, YouTube edition. You can check out the whole rest of the podcast later on, but for now, we're here on video. Joining me, as always, Mr. Greg Earhart. How are you, sir?
I'm good. For podcasts like us, Definitive Cinema washes away your sins. It's like a morality car wash.
Ooh, I love it. I love it. And Ken Jones, how are you, sir?
Chris, look at this guy, okay? I want you to remember this face here. Okay, this is the guy behind the guy behind the guy.
All right, gentlemen. Well, let's get to what this podcast is all about, which is what is the definitive Vegas experience in film. So, folks, if this is your first episode watching us, what we like to do is basically explain, and if aliens drop down this planet, or maybe you're talking to someone who's never even heard of Las Vegas and wants to see what the definitive example of Las Vegas is in a movie, what would you pick? It might not be the best, it might be the worst, but what is the movie that defines the city, the essence, what you can do there, all of that. So what we've done is we've brought our choices to this episode. Now, in order to make sure that we're not cheating for variety's sake, on the count of three, we're going to announce our picks and then we'll explain why one at a time. So, gentlemen, let's get this on. Ready?
Ready.
3, 2, 1. The
Ocean's
Hangover.
Girls.
Whoa. I think we had all three different picks,
Yeah.
right?
Chris, what did you pick?
I went with The Hangover.
Okay.
Okay.
Greg,
Ken, you
what'd you
went
go with?
Ocean's 11?
I said Ocean's 11. You said
And then we go-
Showgirls?
I said Showgirls.
You said
Showgirls.
Showgirls.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, if
All
you
right.
have children watching this podcast, no, I'm kidding. I am kidding. Needless to say, we're not gonna be
Welcome
showing many
to
clips of that
Definitive
movie on
Cinema
this podcast.
After Dark.
Well, I mean, Greg had the most interesting pick.
No, save me for
Yes.
last.
Save you
Oh,
for
No,
last.
save
Okay.
me for last. Yeah.
Best comes last. Well, let's go with Ken then. Ken, you picked
All right.
Ocean's 11. Now, to clarify, which Ocean's 11 are you going?
Oh, the George Clooney one. Yeah.
That's what I assumed. But
2001 or whatever year that was.
exactly.
Yeah.
Feel free to
So
explain.
I think it's the coolest movie that's ever been made about Vegas. And it's the first movie I think of when I think of Vegas. So for me, that's definitive enough. While the story's primarily a heist movie and it checks all the boxes of of that genre, it's also gives you a little bit of everything that Vegas has to offer. You get a scene, several scenes on the casino floor with Bernie Mac as a card dealer, Clooney and Pitt taking a show. You get like dinner scenes with Julia Roberts, and you get the feel of a fight night in Vegas even, and it ends with everyone watching the Bellagio water fountain. So there you go. In addition to having Clooney and Pitt and Julia Roberts on screen, it's got the added bonus of being shot by Steven Soderbergh at his creative peak. And he also serves as his own director of photography, and he makes everything look like $1 million and everything is perfectly framed. So you can't go wrong with that. So
I like your point there.
Ocean's 11.
Yeah, I like your point where I think all three of our picks film the city outstanding.
Yes.
In different ways. So
In different ways, for sure.
it definitely in different ways.
Which we'll get to with Greg.
Especially when you get to Greg. Exactly. Excellent pick. All right. So I went with The Hangover. For a
Fine
couple of
choice.
reasons. Yeah, not a bad choice. Different angle on Vegas. And I think what's nice about our choices is, Ken, you're going with more of kind of an adventure movie, obviously a heist film, showing kind of the higher end.
The higher end, the sleek style of
Exactly.
Vegas. Yeah, the high rollers.
Thank you. The sharks.
Yeah.
I went with a Vegas movie where I felt you
felt seen?
the top to bottom, if you will.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So you get the high end where they get to the suite in the villa in Caesar's Palace. Did Caesar really stay here? Things like that. And then you see the low hanging, like the low part of Vegas, but the parts that you're not supposed to go to at night, the motels,
like a lion, like a tiger in your hotel room.
the tiger in your hotel rooms and things like that. You get the partying, you get the
marriage
aftermath, the marriage. But what I love about The Hangover, and I remember when I saw this in the theater, the brilliance of it is I went in blind, not really knowing what I was going to get into. And all we got was the aftermath, which is a very realistic thing that you don't see in a lot of these types of movies. You get the adventure, you don't get the aftermath. So I thought it was genius on that end of how they played that up. So I love that. Greg, you look like you're about to say something.
I was just going to say, amplify your pick. That's kind of Vegas in a way, right? Because assuming you're not doing it sober, if you're doing it drunk, you're living with the aftermath of a wild night out at Vegas, and you don't get to enjoy or remember the fun, that led up to it, and that's there's something to say about Vegas in that regard.
Yeah, it's like a living in the moment
kind
of thing.
I don't know if they were trying to make that statement, but if you're looking at it from an artistic point of view, that's absolutely a takeaway, from
exactly.
Now, Chris, what about the naked Asian guy in the trunk of a car? Is that another part
That's
of
pretty
the
accurate. That's pretty accurate. We get into a lot of shenanigans while we're out there. So
when you visit Vegas, you get a lot of trunk. You get a lot of
it's
trunk.
it's on my to-do list every time I go out there. It's like, look, if I'm not getting in a trunk naked, then I'm not enjoying myself in Vegas. So I haven't completed my full circle moment. So some people need to play Let It Ride. I need to get into a trunk naked. So that's how it works.
Wow.
So talking about, actually, Ken, that's a nice segue. Talking about the human body nakedness, this is a good segue into Greg's choice, which is the most controversial, I would say. So Greg, you need to explain yourself. Showgirls.
Sure, I will. I think so. This is important to say. We oftentimes talk about how the definitive movie doesn't have to be the best movie. It could be the third best, fourth best. It doesn't. Quality doesn't have anything to do with it. This is my favorite example of that, in my opinion, because Showgirls is not a good movie. I do think there is. I do think it's misunderstood, which I'll get into in a little bit. It's still a misunderstood bad movie, but I think there's some interesting things going on in the movie, which make it semi-rewatchable, I would say. But here's why I think it's definitive. For those who don't know, basically Showgirls is a story of a girl who comes to Vegas without barely $1 to her name. She aspires to be a dancer. She makes it. She crashes. Basically, that's the long and short of her character arc. But what I think is definitive about Showgirls is it's kind of a deconstruction of the image of Vegas that is portrayed outside of the state, right? Because especially when you look at it today, like back when it was formed, through the 50s, 60s, 70s, like it was one of the few places you could gamble in the country. So everyone would go to Vegas if they wanted to play blackjack, wanted to do all that. That's not the case. You can gamble in, many states in the country now. So when you go to Vegas, what makes Vegas still Vegas is not really the gambling aspect of it, although it still makes up for it in volume of casinos. But it's let's be real, it's the tawdriness of it. It's the shows, it's the women, it's the strip clubs, it's all that stuff. But so Showgirls really gets into that because Showgirls is all about, it's very, pun intended, naked about what these clubs are really all about. Nomi Malone, played by Elizabeth Berkley, it's purely about her body. It's all about how fit she is. It's all about how she can basically please the customer. But what's the interesting part of it to me, though, is it's not very glamorous at all. Her ascent is not particularly portrayed in an artful way. I think the way she performs and some of the scenes where she is intimate with men, it's not particularly sexy. And I think it's actually designed to not be erotic, right? She's very rough, she's very fast, it's very, it's very chaotic. And I think that's sort of the point, because behind all the glitz and glam, like Vegas is basically Vegas isn't really selling you a dream, it's selling you a dream like on fast forward, right? Kind of like The Hangover, you said, you enjoy it all, really fast, really crazy, happens all, and then the crash happens after that. I think that's ultimately Vegas, in a nutshell, because Vegas behind the glitz and glamour, as Showgirls kind of gets into, is a lot of people living on not very well, not a lot of means, not a lot of riches to them. And when you're trying to make it big in that, you're objectified like crazy. It is just all about how you can perform, both on the stage and sometimes off the stage, if you get my meaning. So I think
I don't get your meaning. Please elaborate.
Bottom line, the definitive Vegas movie to me has to represent the glitz and glamour as well as the other side of it, the seedy side, or the criminal side of it when we get to other movies. And Showgirls, I really think deconstruct Vegas the best. I think the definitive movie has to be a bit of it can't just be like what they showed a tour in, on the tours and that. It has to be what Vegas really is, both the good and the bad.
Interesting. A very analytical take on Showgirls.
What did you expect bringing me on here?
I was about to say, I expect nothing less. Well, gentlemen, we have given our definitive picks.
Can I react to your definitive picks, by the way?
By the way, please. I didn't even give you time to react. Yes.
I know. Well, actually, before I do that, I want your reaction to Showgirls definitive.
So I haven't seen Showgirls.
Any level of persuasion at all?
I'll get to that later.
I'm gonna watch it tonight.
It's gonna come up. It's gonna come up.
I'm sure it's your worst, and it might be my worst. You'll see why. But again,
I will say I haven't seen it since it came out.
Yeah.
On VHS.
Did you see it in the theater?
No, I saw it on VHS. It was NC-17. I was not 17 at the time.
Oh, okay.
Last time I saw Showgirls was like on VHS tape,
right?
Volume all the way down, because I'm like looking over my shoulder, making sure no one's watching me coming in this room. So I need to rewatch that film, and I will.
Yeah, I'm kind of tempted to see it just because it has gained a little bit of a cult following, and I'm curious to revisit it, but not in any way where it's like I have to see this thing, or reevaluate my priors.
And not to spend too much more time talking about it because we spent enough time, but it is not. I in rewatching now, I don't believe it was ever meant to be like a sexy movie, and that's how it was marketed as. So there was some, a disjoint between the marketing of it and what the movie is actually trying to do, in my opinion. But so yeah, again, I think it's bad, but but I think it's interesting bad. Not quite so good, so bad it's good, but there's interest in it.
There you go. Well, gentlemen, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to react to Ken's Ocean's 11 pick.
Please.
The interesting thing about that is definitive is, you did point that out, but it's really truly just one side of the equation for Vegas, and I think it does side great. I agree. Watching Ocean's 11, the Vegas scenes, it's like you get pumped up wanting to go to Vegas, right? But I don't know if that's the total Vegas experience. Yeah, I don't know if that represents. It's really more of a heist. Like it's up there for definitive heist movie, which we've done an episode we've done before.
Oh, I think I picked it for heist movie, maybe. Or one
but
of
showing aliens,
yeah,
this is Vegas. It's definitely Vegas from what the perception of it is, but I don't know if that's what it is.
Yeah, for me, it's like I think of Vegas, I think of that movie, like that era of Vegas, like the 90s to early 2000s. As kind of like a pinnacle or peak of an era.
We got to Fremont Street then.
What's that?
You can see the real Vegas. That's it.
Right.
Well, folks, obviously we've given you some really good examples, but I want to know what you think the definitive Vegas experience is on film. So in the comments below, leave us your favorites, leave us your choices. Tell us if you agree or disagree, because I'm fascinated. And the more I can talk about Vegas movies, the better, which is exactly what we're going to do in the second part of this podcast. So for those of you watching on YouTube, if you want to continue listening to this podcast on Spotify, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, anywhere you can listen to podcasts, continue on, check it out. The whole thing is going to be right there on there, because we're going to get to our best, worst, and all those fun things, Greg's favorite exercise and all that good stuff later on. So we're going to sign off on video, but we're going to continue on podcast. So join us there.